Hey everyone. For the first question, which of the two figures you read about this week, Luther and Calvin, and who caught my attention the most? Uh, I definitely would say that Calvin stood out to me the most. Uh, and one thing I wanted to focus on was how he talks about the role of the Holy Spirit. One part that really caught my attention was how when in the reading it explained how the Holy Spirit unites us to Christ and is the only one who actually makes faith real in a person. I thought that was a really interesting way to think about faith because I generally think about faith as kind of something that well, it says in, I believe, Romans, if you say with your heart and believe in your mouth that then you will be saved. But here it's talking about it's also a work a Holy Spirit does in your life, which I thought was an interesting concept. Definitely a common theme in lots of the people we've been reading, that faith isn't just something you can decide or understand intellectually, but something that really happens through the Spirit, which is an important part of faith in general, which I think is cool to see emphasized amongst all these different religious thinkers over the generations. It also stood out to me that Calvin didn't just focus on belief, but on transformation, like how the Spirit is actively working in someone to change them over time. That made his theology feel uh, like more of an ongoing process rather than just a one-time decision as well. So overall, Calvin stood out to me because he really explains faith as something that is lived out and sustained and started by the Holy Spirit, and not just something you mentally agree with. For the second question, what is a meaningful and relevant connection you can make between one of these figures and what I learned in the theology lectures this week? Um, a connection I noticed with Calvin's ideas relates to what we learned about worship and liturgy, especially the idea that worship isn't just an external action, but something deeper that involves the heart. Calvin's emphasis on the Holy Spirit helps explain that, because if the Spirit is the one who connects us to Christ, then worship isn't just about going through the motions, it's also about being spiritually engaged. Um, Kind of makes you think of, I forget where it is, I think it's in Corinthians. It says, without, you can prophesy, you can speak in tongues, but without love, it's nothing. I think it's kind of connected to this concept right here. This also connects to different branches of Christianity because, especially in more Reformed traditions influenced by Calvin, there's often less emphasis on some of the physical rituals and more emphasis on like the internal faith and understanding, which, and the idea is without like the Spirit, those external practices don't really mean anything. So for me, Calvin just I agreed with a lot of Calvin had to say. It kind of clarified some of the ideas that I already had in some of those areas, because it shows that worship isn't just about what you do outwardly, but it's also about what's happening inwardly through the Holy Spirit. And that's something that still shapes how different churches really approach worship today, which I thought was interesting to go over. Well, that's all I had to talk about. Looking forward to seeing your responses.